Welcome to Crime Stoppers Victoria's first podcast of the year with our partner BankVic and special guest Equity Mates. During this podcast, we'll discuss evolving and sophisticated scams that prey on those looking to start investing in both shares and cryptocurrency. We focus on the types of investment scams you should be wary of and how you can spot them. I'm joined today by BankVic Senior Fraud and Anti-Money Laundering Consultant Paul Colville and Alec Renahan, co-founder of Equity Mates Media. Paul, Alec, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
I'll get started with a bit of an introduction from you two. Alec, could you please tell us a little about your role and what that entails?
Yeah, so I'm the co-founder of Equity Mates Media. We're one of Australia's largest producers of financial educational content. Our main podcast, Equity Mates, we talk about investing mainly in the stock market, but obviously conversations turn to cryptocurrency, especially when crypto is booming. But we really started the podcast because we wanted to learn and we didn't feel like there were a lot of resources there being made by Australians. And so we wanted to create one, and we're still just trying to keep learning today.
And do your podcast cater to a certain age group or demographic?
Yeah, I think the majority of our audience are young Australians who are working full time for the first times in their lives, traditionally weren't earning much from their savings account, couldn't afford a house, and were trying to figure out what to do with their money. And that was us, and that was what sort of brought us to the stock market, and we wanted to learn about it, and the majority of our audience are in a similar position to us.
That's a great explanation. We'll hear a little about Paul now. So thanks for being here with us again today, Paul. If you could just tell us a little bit about your role as a senior fraud and anti-money laundering consultant at BankVic.
Yeah, absolutely. So alongside our head of risk operations, I help manage the risk operations team. It's a small team, but we're very close-knit. So my kind of role is to oversee that team, help them make sure that they're equipped to meet the challenges and the roles and the expectations required, but also take on those small high-level investigations, working with our members, having those duty of care conversations, and also AML reporting as well.
Thanks for that, Paul. Now, we're going to be talking mostly about the risks and how to stay safe while learning about investing and getting involved in the cryptocurrency space. Starting with you, Paul, what are you seeing from your member base, and how big of an issue are scams for you at the moment?
Look, it's quite large, because when the loss is big, it's big. And it's the same old adage as it's a gambling thing, right? So, I think with people sort of starting to maybe question the established financial system, they're looking to move away from your typical investments, obviously with crypto and all that sort of space. They're looking for those quick wins. So as I said, oftentimes, and look, it's not just the elderly or those who aren't very well educated. It's probably more the younger base as well who are getting targeted. And look, investment scams in our customer base still remains prevalent. We've had quite a few big losses for members. And I suppose the big thing now is third-party coercion. So you're starting to get those people in the background who are telling people what to do. They're coaching them. They're reaching out to them through social media platforms. And, they're able to use that remote access scam in conjunction. So they make it look legitimate. They'll show you a fake platform, a fake website. They'll even show you profits you've made. And, they give you a little bit of money. It's almost like a Ponzi scheme in a way. And once they sort of got you, that's when they start pressuring you to invest more, bullying sales tactics, isolating them from friends and family, that sort of thing.
Sounds like it's definitely a big issue in the banking sector. Alec, in terms of your role and Equity Mates, what experiences have you seen or are you aware of in terms of scams and issues people are coming across when they try to invest?
Yeah, I think scams are becoming a lot more prevalent, especially on social media. We see it a lot, especially in our world. We see a lot of impersonation scams where there will be a big profile or a famous person, and there will be a number of knockoff accounts that are made to look like that person, and then they're messaging followers, and a lot of the time it's about a crypto trading scheme or something similar. And the social media platforms themselves are pretty slow to respond to those reports and to take those accounts down. So they sometimes can be up for a while and, trying to entice followers with scams. And I think to echo what Paul's saying, there's a view that a lot of online scams mainly focus on older people and that they're the people being scammed. But there's been a lot of studies recently, one from Deloitte over in the US, that found that Gen Z were 3 times more likely to be scammed online than boomers. And so I think we've really got to change our view on who is being scammed and how they're being scammed. Some scammers are pretty low tech and pretty obvious, full of spelling mistakes and pretty obviously not great. But there are some pretty sophisticated ones catching people who are quite technically literate. And so when we talk about this conversation, I think it's probably relevant to change how we think about scams.
I think that is definitely a misconception that it's just the older generation who are susceptible to scams, as we are seeing more and more younger people falling victim to them. Paul, what are you seeing in that area?
Yeah, look, again, we're seeing people not really think before they leap. And a lot of some of the members I've spoken to, they really get fed the idea that it's real because they can see it. It's no longer this kind of like Ponzi scheme, ethereal thing that you can't see. You've got a screen in front of you. You've got what you would consider a trading platform. You can see your profits. And it's quite difficult to break through that cognitive dissonance for a victim because, a lot of them don't want to be told what you're investing in isn't real. So, from that space, and as well from my own personal experience, just seeing what's on social media now, you see TikTok and YouTube, they're promoting the idea of all these really quick crypto wins. And I think it creates a dangerous precedent that people forget that investing in itself is gambling. It's not guaranteed. It's based off the market fluctuations. And especially with crypto, people just aren't informed. They're not doing their research and they're giving up that control to a third party thinking there's an established relationship. So, and as well, a funny thing I heard about, just to touch on what Alex said about, the spelling mistakes and that sort of thing, I did hear from someone within the industry that they keep that kind of communication purposely like that because they want to catch out individuals who don't really pick up on that. So, whereas on the other side now, you are starting to see that more sophisticated take on investment scams, as I mentioned before. And so it's really a broad net that's capturing everyone now, which is becoming quite scary.
I have heard of some scammers sending out those bulk spam emails with intentional spelling errors in the hopes someone will fall for it and go through with the scam, knowing full well that most people will send the email to their junk folder. A question from that I have for the both of you is, how is the industry tackling this?
Well, I think Paul's going to have more insight than I will here, because my view on it is probably the industry isn't doing enough to tackle it. But I feel like the challenge is the parts of the industry that we look to tackle it are probably not those with the most power to tackle it. So what I mean by that is, we probably look to, the banks and the ACCC to try and tackle scams. But once your bank is involved or once you're reporting something to the ACCC, often the damage is already done. Where I think the players that can do more to stop scammers are the big tech platforms, the social media players, and I feel like maybe they're not incentivized enough to do it, maybe they're not regulated enough to do it, but I think that's where a lot of scams originate. I think I was reading something from the US that 1 in 4 scams start on social media, and so for me, that's probably where you want to look if you want to see more to crack down on it. But I'm just a podcaster. I'm sure Paul's got more insight on what the industry's doing.
Yeah, Paul, given you are working in senior fraud and anti-money laundering, what is the banking industry doing to tackle this?
Yeah, and I think Alec touched on well there before by saying, the entities that we look towards probably aren't really the best equipped, and as he said, once the money's gone, the damage is done. And it becomes like a cat and mouse game because once the funds go overseas, that's really it. And, you have to come back and tell a victim after, a few months after trying to get that money back that, look, unfortunately, it's all gone. So I think what banks are doing now is they're really starting to put money into understanding scams because from a transactional monitoring perspective, it's not a hard and black and white monitoring rules. You can see activity that sort of resembles a scam, but until you have that conversation with a member, it's all just going to be numbers on a screen. So, if you see sort of someone who's not used to doing crypto, they start doing large transfers, they're within an age demographic that may be susceptible, you've got to reach out and have that conversation. I think banks now are working hard on that. I know ASIC as well are feeding a lot of information, trying to shut down these investment scams. As I said, it becomes tough because once funds go overseas, law enforcement can't really do much. But we are catching up, I think, as a country. And from an institutional perspective, we're putting more measures in place to have those conversations with our members and also not be afraid to sort of challenge them and stop particular transactions that are high risk. Because at the end of the day, I see it as a sense of I'd rather inconvenience a member for a little bit, a couple of weeks while maybe they determine they want to do their transfers elsewhere, rather than come back to them and say, you've lost everything, you've lost your super, you've lost your savings. So I think banks are slowly starting to focus on that. But it's got to be a collaborative effort.
Absolutely. It's definitely a case of once the money's gone, it's essentially gone forever and there's not much feasibility in getting it back. When your members or listeners are looking to invest, what kind of advice are you giving them to get started?
So I think the first and most important thing is to really educate yourself. That just having that base level of financial literacy will help you sort of, realize something is a scam, whatever asset class you're wanting to invest in, crypto or more traditional asset classes. So I think the number one thing is to educate yourself. And the great news is there is a whole lot of free resources out there, and then there's plenty of books and everything that you can pay for as well. So I think at a general level, that's the most important thing. But then I would have two specific pieces of advice if you're looking at an investment opportunity or something and you're wondering, is this legit or not? The first one is nothing in investing is guaranteed. So as soon as someone starts talking about we can guarantee you this return or anything like that, run the other way. It's a scam. So number one, nothing guaranteed. Number two is why are they selling this course or this trading opportunity? I think for me, a massive red flag is someone saying, I figured out the secrets of the stock market or the crypto market, and I'm going to teach you for just pay for this $900 course. Like if you figured out the secrets of something and you figured out a way to make a lot of money, you then don't need to sell a course because you figured out how to make all that money. So just really question why are they selling this investment opportunity? Because a lot of the time the people that claim that they figured it all out are making more money from the course than they are from actually their investing. So I think they're two red flags that would have me running the other way. But then beyond that, I think it's a mindset thing. It's a lot of scammers, especially in the finance and investing space, thrive on people's get-rich-quick mindset. Once you're looking for those quick and easy wins, you're going to be a lot more susceptible to, scams.
It's a great point you make, and it's something I see myself on my own social media quite regularly now.
And I think the tough thing is, there are great courses out there, don't get me wrong. And, we've worked with people that have produced courses and they're great educational resources. So I'm not knocking all courses. It's just the courses where it's we're going to teach you the secrets of the market, how to make $1 million. Yeah, we'll guarantee you this return. Those are the kind of courses where you should run the other way.
And Paul, what kind of advice are you giving your members when it comes to investment scams and what to look out for?
If someone you don't know reaches out to you on social media, especially WhatsApp, block them immediately, because WhatsApp seems to be a big portal for victims to be contacted. And just do a quick Google search. Take your time to do your research. Actually, I've got another one as well. People aren't going to make money on your behalf. If you keep investing money and they're making you more money, it's going to be a scam. Take control of your own investments, do your own research, do a quick Google search. At the end of the day, you can do as much research as possible and still get bitten. It just depends on how much you're willing to invest. Don't invest more than you're willing to lose. If someone tries to offer to show you a trading platform via remote access, end that conversation immediately. And I suppose the big one I used to say a lot in previous roles was you don't pay money to get your own money back. So a lot of people got into the very quick sinking sand scenario of, oh, if I just give them an extra 10 more grand, they're going to release it off the platform. Oh, I have to give them another 20 grand. It's for licensing and taxes. And, if you could just sort of stop for a minute and think about it, if you want to go and pull your money from a crypto platform, you may pay a nominal fee, a small nominal fee in some cases, but you don't pay 10, 20 grand to get your 100 grand back after all the money you've invested. So yeah, I try and tell them, look, do some research. I always say to them, send me what you've got. I'll have a look for you. I'll do some searches. I'd rather do that and help protect a member than not, because 9 times out of 10 people aren't going to go do their own research. As Alex said before, they want that quick win. They want that easy return, but inherently anything worth something isn't easy.
It does sound a bit ridiculous when you put it that way, that you would need to pay these giant sums of money to get an even bigger sum of your own money back. It's actually something at Crime Stoppers we cover quite regularly about scams. If anyone asks for a form of payment up front, or it sounds too good to be true, more likely than not, it's going to be a scam. So this is obviously an old tactic that's still being used to this day, and it's obviously still working. A question for you, Alec. How does the investment landscape look at the moment for those looking to get started?
Yeah, I mean, it's never been easier to get started investing. I think over the last sort of 15 years, the technology's really come to the finance industry and made it cheaper and easier to get started. We've seen a lot of low-cost brokers come to market and micro-investing apps come to market that have meant you can start investing with less. There are platforms that let you invest from $1, and the amount they charge you to invest has never been lower. So in that sense, it's great. The market is more accessible, and that's a really good thing because there traditionally have been a lot of barriers to entry. The problem is, though, that we haven't seen the level of financial education grow with accessibility. So now we've handed the keys of the stock market and a number of other markets, including the crypto market, to a lot of people who then didn't learn about investing from their parents, didn't learn about it in school, and so are trying to figure it out themselves. And there are a lot of great resources out there, but you have to get the good resources in front of people because there's, unfortunately a lot of scams out there as well. So I think it's a great time to educate yourself and start learning, but it's also a tricky time to navigate the world and try and figure out what's out there. I think, as we talk at the end of 2023, getting into 2024, we're seeing crypto markets rebound as well. So my big prediction for the year ahead is you're going to hear a lot more about crypto in the news. And there's going to be a lot more people, scammers hitting you up on social media and friends posting about it on social media and stuff like that. So I expect the next year to feel a little bit, frothy and full of hype as crypto sort of kicks around and runs up again. So it's a great time to start educating yourself, but it's also a really easy time to fall into some traps or some scams.
I guess in preparation for that, what advice would you be giving people that are receiving those sorts of messages on social media?
I think Paul said it best earlier that nothing of value is going to come really easily. But I think alongside that, it is within your grasp to start building wealth through investing. It takes time, and when we say it takes time, it takes decades to start building wealth. But even just small steps today and building good financial habits will be worth it for your future. So I think my biggest advice is start educating yourself. Don't put it off. Don't feel like you can't get started, but do the work.
And Paul, what are some mistakes you've seen people do when they begin investing or getting into that investing sort of environment?
Look, we've got a phone in our hand, right? That's a gateway to, as Alex said before, a new world of investing opportunities. And with these third-party apps that keep popping up, and I think a lot of people with the crypto space, they really go on the bandwagon of Bitcoin. I wish I'd invested earlier. I wish I'd invested in Ethereum, 5 years ago, it'd be worth this much. So it creates that level of what you would call FOMO. And I think giving control to a third party is probably the big thing. because you lose power over your own investments, you lose control, and you become beholden to someone else's financial advice. Whereas Alex said before, you need to do your research. There's more information out there than any other point or time in history. So to give that power away to someone else advising you on your behalf and doing your trades and doing your investments, I think is probably a big mistake. And again, just not doing that research, because again, it's fair that people want to invest and make some money and try and get out of a financial hole they may be in or feel empowered. But it's always that tipping point where they've got you just by a little bit. And then it's like, okay, for us to do this big win, you've got to now give us 50K. And people will give it over. And, I've seen victims, on the phone to scammers, heard them, the scammers abusing them. The scammers taking control. They're isolating them from friends and family. Never, if you feel something, you need an opinion on something, reach out to family and friends, reach out to people you trust. Don't just trust that faceless person in the computer.
Why is it you think people are so willing to listen to these faceless people on the other end of the phone or on the computer? Is it the type of language they use? Are they very manipulative? What is it?
Extremely manipulative. They're utilizing people, I guess, from areas of the world where you don't associate scam activity. And so that relationship is and rapport is built very quickly. And they're master manipulators at convincing you they are your friend. And the shocking thing and the despicable thing is that scammers will share victim information. Once they've got a bit of money out of someone, they'll pass on those details to their friend or another group. So that's probably the scary thing in that sense. They're just very good at what they do. A lot of them just work in these high pressure sales call centers overseas, and they just don't care.
How elaborate are the scams that you're seeing? We all know scams are becoming even more sophisticated, even to the point they're now using AI. What's your opinion on that, and what have you seen in your own experience?
I think probably the scary thing is the impersonation scams. A lot of scammers now are impersonating banks. So what we've found they're doing is they will be speaking to a member on the phone. There will literally be a second party speaking to the call center. And what they're doing is giving the illusion that I work on behalf of your bank. Also, I work for the bank. And what they're doing is generating security codes to the member. So the member gets this legitimate code and goes, oh, yeah, okay, that's real. That's fine. They give the code to the third party, and then the third party can give it to the other person, and then it's an account takeover. I suppose as well, we're seeing sort of increased activity in fraudulent accounts used to facilitate the movement of investment scam funds as well. We don't see too much overseas activity from our perspective, but I know that's probably a big thing that the banks are dealing with as well, is funds being sent overseas and utilizing those places where law enforcement don't have jurisdiction. So the elegancy of the scam is becoming much more tight-knit. It's a lot more attention to detail, and these people have a greater understanding of how banks operate. So they're coaching members through the processes on what to say when you're questioned. If they say this, if they ask you this, you answer this.
Alec, I saw you shaking your head just before. What were your thoughts on that?
I've just never heard about that that scam where they have a second person on the line with your bank while the first person's talking to you, and then they're coordinating their actions to generate codes. And I mean, it's just amazing how sophisticated and coordinated some of these scams are. I think, the big takeaway from that, I think the ACCC say something like 30% of people who have been scammed don't report. And, it's probably higher than that, I imagine. I think the stigma around I've been scammed is probably something that needs to change. And I think as more and more people know someone who has been scammed, that stigma hopefully dies down because, I imagine, and, again, Paul, you can probably speak to this more than I can, but, reporting it early is probably a lot more helpful and makes it more likely to get the money back than, waiting a month or something to come forward. But yeah, you understand why the stigma's there because you feel so silly if you've been scammed, but everyone's been scammed or got close or, believed it for a second. There's it's not as embarrassing as it might feel.
I'll wrap this one up shortly, but before I do, let's just say you both have 3 pieces of advice for someone who is interested in investing but not too sure what they're doing and wants to remain as safe as possible. What would those pieces of advice be? I'll start with you, Paul.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, if you get a call from someone pretending to be from an organization or from your bank and you're in doubt, hang up and call the registered number. Oftentimes, as well, scammers are using spoof numbers as well to try and seem more legitimate, but just hang up, contact the organization directly to validate. Don't trust third parties who, as Alex said before, come to you with that offer of, I will take care of your investments. It's not how it works. And just do your research. Do a Google search. Check if they're a licensed entity. If they're based overseas, tread lightly. And be ready to lose if you're going to invest.
Some great advice there from Paul. And Alec, what were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think my first one is really picking up where Paul left off. Only invest what you can afford to lose. I think this is not just related to scamming. This is sort of just a really important investing lesson is you don't want to be investing money that you're going to need to pull out in the short term to cover your expenses. Because whatever you're investing in, it's volatile. It will likely be volatile, and you want to be able to think long term with your investing. So, number one, only invest what you can afford to lose. If you want to buy a house, don't put your in the short term, don't put your deposit in the stock market, and certainly don't put money that you need to buy groceries or cover rent in the stock market. So that's number one. Number two, nothing in finance is guaranteed. So the number one red flag is as soon as anyone is guaranteeing you a return or guaranteeing you something in a particular time frame, massive red flag. And then finally, my third piece of advice would be building wealth takes time, but it's worth it. So just have that mindset that you're going to take small steps, and sometimes you're going to feel like you're not getting anywhere, but you're going to look back and sort of see how far you've come. The saying in finance is that compounding is the 8th wonder of the world, and it's hard for us to get our head around it, but it's pretty amazing what happens to our money if we just let it work away consistently over decades. But it's not enough. You're not going to get rich overnight. So just change your mindset when it comes to building wealth.
Some more great advice there from Alec. Thank you both for your time and sharing your knowledge on the investing landscape today.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for having me.
You both provided some great insight that I'm sure our listeners have learned a great deal from. If you are wanting to learn more about scams, you can visit scamwatch.org.au or cyber.gov.au. We have many great podcasts on our website, so make sure you head to crimestoppersvic.com.au where you can learn more tips on how to stay safe online. Thanks for listening.